Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Lighthouse Sessions. In today's episode, we're continuing our series where I talk about how I work with my clients, and all of this is foundational to building referral systems. I'm not kidding. People come to me and they say, Jeff, I just want referrals. Okay. What are you going to do with the referrals? Who do you want referred to you? How are you going to help them? I don't know. I just want referrals. Well, first and foremost, I don't want to sound harsh, but I'm going to be harsh. That is a colossal waste of your time and mine. Worse, you're asking me to waste someone else's time. So when I work with people, one of the things I insist on, and this is what I do with my actual clients in the easier to refer system, is we get clear on who they serve and how they help them. Now, in the last episode, the first of this series, we talked about who your niche is, and we talked about their hot buttons, or how we know they're ready to buy, or what messaging they need for marketing. All of that is about clarity. And you will see everything that I do, including today, what I'm going to show you, is about clarity. Now, I don't care if you are a product-based company or a service-based company. I work with companies that are in the business-to-business space. Now, my particular focus is on the services, because I find services are more interesting to me. I've spent more of my life pondering it. If you have a service-based business, you need to have a clear product that you offer. And if you have a product-based business, you can add value to your clients by giving it a service wrapper too. Now, that's not as complicated as it sounds. Let's say you sell cars. Everybody thinks the car is the thing. Nobody buys a car because they want a car. They buy a car because they want status, so they'll buy a certain type of car for that, or they need transportation, or other reasons. So if you sell a product like a car, a service wrapper might be books, materials. It could be a bundle of products. But imagine if you knew that they bought the car because they wanted to show it off and they wanted it to be nice and shiny. One of the things you could do is offer a course on how to keep your car polished. And then when you send them home with their brand new car, you could have a car care kit in the trunk that includes things to clean, polish, wax, etc. So that's as complicated as life needs to be. Is what else do they need to get the maximum enjoyment out of the product or service that you've delivered? Now, the thing with service is it can be very ethereal. Effectively, if you sell a service, you sell air. There's not always a tangible thing. And so what I like to do is we create what I call the signature system. And basically, we talked about the avatar and who we serve in the last one. Now we're understanding, and this is my favorite little diagram because it's stupidly simple yet deeply complex. We start with whatever their problem is, and our signature system has to be the bridge from their problem to the promise we've delivered or we want to deliver. So simple. If their problem is their hand hurts and we're going to deliver a pain-free hand, our system has to help us get there. Now, this is where I believe a lot of professionals, a lot of experts, coaches, consultants, whatever you are, you can add enormous value to your world just by defining your signature system. And believe it or not, people come to me and say, well, Jeff, I want to create some social media content. What should I create? I don't know. The answer always depends on what your audience's problem is and what you're promising and how you solve it. So I came up with the signature system concept This has been talked about by others. I don't pretend to be completely creative, but I have built this as a tool that I use internally. I use this for the easier to refer system, which, by the way, is my signature system. And I use this with all my clients. Now, you'll note this is a grid, and don't be intimidated by it. It's not that hard. Typically, what I do is I'll break any service, and you can do this with your products if you want, but I talk about services, so that's what we'll talk about. I break it into up to 5 stages. Now, I've gotten to the point where I always use 5 stages. And the reason I do that is for consistency, but it also gives me different offers and different levels. So I'll explain that. So in my world, stage 1 is always diagnosis. What is their actual problem? How important is it to them to solve? How painful is it? How urgent? Is it a problem that they really, truly want to solve? Now, a lot of marketing, a lot of sales, there's a concept called hangnail versus gaping neck wound. People will pay a lot of money for a major pain like a gaping, bleeding neck wound, or as a little less graphic, the migraine level pain. If you've ever had a migraine, you will do anything to make it go away. If you have hangnail level pain, it's mildly annoying, but the minute something else comes up, you forget about it. So I want to add value to my audience. And the number one thing I can do to add value is to help them understand their pain. So when you have a migraine level pain, it's one thing to make the pain go away, but it's another to understand what caused it in the first place so you can avoid future instances. So that's where I can add value. And I actually offer a diagnosis as a standalone service because it helps them understand their problem and do they want to solve it. Now, the second thing I have, and this comes closely after the diagnose stage, I will always recommend. So stage 2 for me is recommend. And here I'm going to say, give them 3 options. And I have to be very, very clear and very fair. Status quo, do nothing is an option. And I make that clear. I also can say, some people want to fix things themselves. So do it yourself is an equally viable option. The third option I always give them is get help. They can work with me. They can work with someone else. Here's the questions you need to ask to choose who you're going to work with. You'll see that I do that on purpose. I don't want somebody to work with me because they think I'm the only option. I want them to work with me because they know I'm the perfect option for them. Now, this used to bother people, but the reality is if somebody is not a fit, I don't want them to work with me just to work with me. So I want to make sure we agree that this is a perfect fit. So it's either a hell yes or by default a hell no. Once we have the diagnose and the recommend, the next stage is implement. And again, I always help people. There's different levels. I can do it for them. That's the concierge top tier. I can do it with them. That's my middle tier. And then there's always a do-it-yourself option. And that's the bottom tier. I make those 3 options so that people are actually choosing what they want to do. Now, in the implement, depending on which level they pick, obviously there's more or less effort on my part. If they choose to do it yourself, they get templates, they get training, they get the steps they need. Those are for people who maybe couldn't afford to have me help them one-on-one, but they still need help and I want to give them something. So you'll see I have different levels for different budgets. The do-it-yourself level comes with the lowest effort from me. It's got the same tools. Believe it or not, I actually share my internal tools, but it doesn't come with my professional guidance saying, hey, I think you should do this. They've got to follow the system. And by the way, if they don't follow the system, they're not going to get the results I would have expected. I am there to course correct if they need it, But usually if they're self-starters, they want to do it themselves, I give them the tools. So we've got one of the big things in the implement stage is we have to share the excuse me, the KPIs or the success metrics. Here's how you know you're doing this right. Now, the next step for me, step 4, is maintain. And here we're monitoring the results. We're actively testing and optimizing. We're looking for, are we getting the results we promised? And this is where we're building up the return on investment, and we're building the proof that the changes have occurred. So again, most people change everything rapidly. We have experiments. We gently change things, and we test and we measure. We're tweaking what is rather than burning everything down and starting over. And then the final stage is optimize. And I think this is where most professionals fall down. They deliver a great service and then they part ways and they say, thank you, have a nice life. And then they go look for the next person to start over. We're unique in the easier to refer system and in how I work with people, in that we have an optimized stage. So stage 5 is always optimize. And what we do is we'll meet with the client on their timeline, either monthly or quarterly. Anything less frequently than quarterly is almost pointless. But basically, we're looking at, okay, we've changed these things. What else can we improve? Or we've got a 10% improvement here. How can we improve that and get 15 next quarter? So that's the stages. The stages are the most important. Now, you may have what I call SOPs, standard operating procedures. The steps are merely what we need to cover in each stage. So I have 5 stages. Within each stage, I'm going to list out all of the steps I need to deliver that result. So in stage 1, diagnose, I'm looking for who they serve, what problem they solve. I have steps. So for each stage, you're going to list out the steps. What does success look like? How do we know we're there? Now, the next column is the finish line. And I think this is where a lot of professional services could improve easily. A finish line is a tangible result. What do they know? How do they know this stage is finished? Now, I've worked with a lot of high-end consultants where the finish line for the entire project is they'll come in, they'll do interviews, they'll conduct analysis, and then 6 months later, they'll deliver a report in a vacuum. That's 6 months where the client goes, what did we pay for? So we want to have clear finish lines for each stage so that we can all look at it as a project, break down our big 6-month project into 5 stages, and we can check it off. This gives people a sense of accomplishment. It keeps them in the loop, and they feel educated and aware. So the finish line is something tangible. So in my case, diagnose is really easy. When we give them a report saying, here's what we've found, do you agree? That's the finish line. When we come to recommend, the finish line is they pick one and decide to move forward. Implement, same thing. They've picked one and they've followed the project plan that we've created. So implement has a finish line. It starts with a project plan. It ends when the project plan is completed. Maintain is a little less exciting, but basically every month we're reviewing KPIs and metrics, and the finish line is we've analyzed this month and we know with certainty we're getting results, or we know with certainty we need to optimize something else. And then with the optimize, it actually becomes the finish line there. It doesn't actually ever finish because we always, if it makes sense, roll into another project. So the whole point of optimize is we want to keep finding ways to help them. So we're looking to help our client rather than looking for a new client and starting over. We want to get to know our clients deeply. We want to work with them. Now, the prize, this is where it becomes a tangible thing for them. What do they have in their hand that says, we crossed the finish line, we've finished? So in the diagnose stage, the prize, the finish line is that report. It says, here's what the problems are, here's how serious it is, here's what it costs you to not fix it. The prize is not the report. You might think it is, but the prize is the clarity of knowing what's wrong with them, what pain we're solving, and what really is possible if we do fix that pain. So the prize is tangible to them. It's the confidence and the clarity to move forward. So that's a signature system. Again, each level has a different finish line, a different prize. But if you think about this grid, anything that has a gap or doesn't have an answer is a blind spot in your business, and it's a weakness in your marketing. If you can clearly outline your signature system with the stages, the steps, the finish lines, and the prizes, those are your marketing materials laid out for you. And honestly, it's your sales process laid out for you. And it's your checklist for how you deliver in your operations. So a lot of people treat marketing, sales, and operations as distinct. I treat them as all part of one experience for your client. And the signature system is our promise, and it becomes our checklist to say promise delivered. So I hope this was useful. I know I sound like I rant a lot, but honest to God, if you can't clearly tell me what you do, I can't clearly match you with somebody in my network. So I hope that was useful. I love your comments. What insight did you take away? What do you disagree with? Because I'm not infallible, but this works for me. I will say that one of my core assumptions, I care deeply about my clients and I care deeply about the results. The signature system holds me accountable to them. So, love your thoughts, comments. See you in the next one. And by the way, in the next one, we will discuss the heaven or hell exercise, one of my favorites.